to give them a couple minutes, or?
I'm not sure if we're waiting for that other, the last person to join, but since we do have a forum, we can normally start the meeting and then they can join in whenever they'd like. So normally the way, so I know this is a few years, you're Kevin's first time in here. Normally I'll leave it on this screen, and as soon as the chairperson or whoever's going to be running the meeting starts talking, that's when I switch it over. The way our live stream works, it's automated. So as soon as it hits 5:30, we're on live stream mode. But that's why I leave these screens on, just to kind of wait until we start the meeting. Then once somebody speaks, then I essentially flip the screen, and that way I bring the cameras on.
So I have a quick question. Sure. If we have anybody remotely who comes in for the public comment, how do we know there's someone there?
I would be the person who would let. Normally I'd be talking back and forth with Sarah.
Okay.
And I'd let Sarah know, or Sarah, she'll be on Zoom. So I'll be on Zoom.
Okay.
I'll let Sarah know, and then I bring them in, and they can speak over Zoom, and they'll stay over the speakers.
All right, perfect. Thank you.
And I've normally put a timer up there so they can see the timer.
Perfect.
Here, make it official.
Oh my God. So much easier at home.
Yeah.
Now it feels important. So let me know when you want me to call it to order.
It's 5:35. We should probably go ahead and get started.
Okay, so I will call to order tonight's City of Indio Sustainability Commission meeting, Monday, March 27th, 5:30. We will do roll call. So Sarah, if you'd like to do roll call.
Chair Liu, absent. Vice Chair Tack.
Present.
Commissioner Chris.
Present.
Commissioner Vasquez, absent. And Commissioner Benson.
Present. So then we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you. We will then move to public comment. If there's anybody, obviously nobody is here, so if there's anyone remotely, we'll give a few minutes here to see if there's anyone who wants to comment.
There are no public comments.
Thank you very much. With that, we will move to minutes. Minutes, February 27th, 2023. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
I make a motion, we approve them as presented.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Anybody have a comment on the motion on the floor? If there's no comment, we'll go to vote.
I'll do a roll call vote. Vice Chair Tack,
Yes.
Commissioner Chris,
Yes.
Commissioner Benson,
Yes. Motion passes. Thank you. Move on to discussion items, outreach plan update. Sarah, if you'd like to take the floor.
All right, the first thing that we have on the updates is for the outreach plan. And right now, after speaking with Tara from CV Strategies and considering that it's best to kind of stay in sort of the ideas that she gave us, where we already have some funding, we already have some momentum, we already have ways of doing outreach, like the website, working with the Chamber of Commerce, utilizing the I-10 signs and things like that. I think that the outreach plan might start off more as a project-based plan, and as we move those projects out, depending on how robust we get with what we're doing, it might be easier to form the plan that way. And I think that that's a good way to start because, for instance, we're going to be working on the website in a couple of weeks, and one of the commissioners did send an email about adding sustainability information to the website in certain areas, and the chair has talked about adding the sustainability plan, and all of those things can be done and pretty quickly. I do have a meeting with IT in the next couple of weeks to actually go ahead and start putting that together so that there's more sustainability. At least the plan will be up. Information will be easier to find, and then we're going to start working on whether we can add that feedback loop. But that can be, by the time we move forward with moving the entire 2023 work plan together, that will be a project that's kind of already in motion. So in that sense, I think working these into projects might be a little bit better. I've also looked at, considered everything that we do with, or we might be able to do with businesses, indoor bins, the 1383 bins that are the food bins and the waste dollies, possibly doing the zero waste certification, and there's also, we have reusable utensils. We might be able to work with restaurants like that, but putting those, all of those will take outreach. But as we start putting projects like that together, the outreach will sort of come with that, and instead of forcing the plan before we have these all together, it might be easier to incorporate them in what we're doing in a way where the outreach comes as projects or part of projects like that, and that they're done in the most efficient way, as CV Strategies has kind of let us know that these are good options. Can you do your projects and add the outreach and stay within these options? So I think that the keeping it in that kind of a frame of mind might be a good way to start with the outreach plan. Another good thing about, or another possibility for that, is going to be our Clean California grant. Tara also showed that we have started the artwork projects within the schools, anti-littering artwork, which will end up in a calendar for next year. We also have to do 2 anti-littering campaigns themselves. So doing those as part of an outreach project, or an outreach instead of like a whole plan, but adding that as part of it, is, I think, going to be another way we can just keep things moving forward without stopping at this point and putting a plan together. I wouldn't say that by the time we take the 2023 work plan, we wouldn't have an outreach plan, but this would be a way of starting and keeping the momentum with what we're doing now. We do have to do some anti-littering campaigns for the Clean California grant. It's completely funded, so it's part of our current projects, which goes right along with what we're trying to do. I think that we might want to try to recommend a slogan along with our work plan that could be added fairly easily to, well, what I would, if we could outlive this Clean California grant and have a slogan that we could move forward with, I think that would be something that would be helpful, something we could recommend to council. They're kind of, everything that I've seen is kind of centered around Indio as you know, the center stage. So maybe a slogan kind of, don't litter. We have a lot of acts to come, but we only have this stage, or we only have one stage, something like that. Anything that you might think of, or that you might think we could kind of incorporate that could even last out longer than the Clean California Grant, or anything even specific to the Clean California Grant, because we have to do that outreach, and we have to make that push. Please, if you give that some thought and email me at the end, I think it would be great if we could have something to recommend to the City Council that's really specific to a slogan for anti-littering or beautification or something along those lines. We're also going to bring the Eco Hero back. He is a musical presentation that we send to schools. He usually works with grades 1 through 5, where he does musical presentations about littering, about just sustainability in general. He's very well liked in schools. He wasn't here last year, but we are running the anti-littering campaign, art campaign in the schools this year. So we have that kind of continuity. And then next year, we'll bring back the Eco Hero again. So I'll bring back some more information on that, but we're going to bring him back. And also for the Clean California Grant, for the last 2 events, we've really partnered with the city on bringing in volunteers and putting that together, and they have been super helpful with that. We did kind of a volunteer day last Saturday, and we took a couple volunteers down to Jackson Street and got 3 huge trash bags of litter just along Jackson Street in that project area for the Clean California Grant between Kenner and Avenue 45, just walking up and back. So it was very successful, but in our next one, we're just going to have instead of partnering with the city in a larger event, we're just going to push out information about the grant, about cleanup, about anti-littering, and about getting some volunteers specific to the grant. So having that slogan, having some kind of specific outreach to that's going to be, I think, very important. It would be a good time to try and get Tara involved and maybe have something that, again, we can use there, maybe can outlive the grant and become something more standard in a lot of things that we're doing. Another thing we have to do for that grant is the artwork along, or the shade art along both sides of the street. And as that comes along, we also have to do outreach, community outreach about that, meaning we're going to have a couple community meetings and bring people together. And that is going to be a great time to kind of bring our sustainability information to that event as well. We're going to bring everyone together, of course, to talk about the artwork, to talk about what we're doing for the grant. But if between now and the next meeting, if there's some kind of, just really succinct information you want to get out or get back from some folks in that area, then that would be great too, and we'll begin to incorporate that. We won't have those community meetings until May at the earliest. So we could talk a little bit more about that in the next meeting and get some recommendations for that as well. So if you think about anything about, how you want to, what you want to know, or outreach that you want to send out, then that's a good time to do that. We are also going to have Burtech come and talk about their 1383 outreach. They're going to give us they send monthly information packets on the outreach that they're doing. So I'd ask them to come here, and then once you see what they're doing for the organic food waste, consider what more we might do, what else you want to see. We also have funding for that. The state gave us a 1383 grant for about $120,000, I believe, and the outreach is a part of that. So once they give their information at the next meeting or so, we can talk about what more you want to do. So there's a lot coming up with outreach. The plan really isn't I don't want to say it's not coming together. There's a lot of projects, and putting together those projects first is going to help us really form a plan. I think it'll just come together. That's all I have for the outreach plan, unless you have any questions or comments.
Anybody have any questions for Sarah? I have a couple, if you don't mind.
Sure.
So with the slogan, does it have to be an original slogan? Do we have to go through a process of getting trademarks and copyrights, or can we resurrect another slogan that's something maybe been used, like "Give a hoot, don't pollute"? Can we resurrect that one back from the 70s, or?
Somehow, I believe that's trademarked. We would have to check. I
Right.
can look. If it's not,
Is that an
then-
option, or is that just not really an option? Just
No,
in general?
the options are open, as long as it's not illegal,
Right.
that's it, and then we just put that in if that's something that you wanna recommend, absolutely, and I can check if it's, trademark, is there something we can use or not, and,
Right.
and then we just put that into the list of what we could recommend for
Maybe
how
even
to-
something that neighboring cities and communities might use. If La Quinta has a slogan that we could carry over, or something Coachella Valley wide, so that it's not just stuck here, if that makes sense. So we can kind of maybe coordinate something like that, if that's possible. Like I said, if the wheel's been invented somewhere else, maybe we can take that wheel and use it ourselves.
Got it.
And the volunteer cleanup, so are we focused with the California, Clean California grant, are we just focused on that area of Jackson that the grant is focused on, or is this something that's, we're talking citywide, or something replicable from Jackson Street to the rest of the city?
It is something that we could, it's open to all of that. We have to do that part of the street. That has to be a part of it. That's specific to the grant. But also, the whole idea of the grant was that there's basically so much litter on the side of the road, and they want to see broader campaigns, and they want to see broader community involvement and broader projects. So we could do something like we'd have to focus, we'd have to have a work group on that part of the street, but we could also have litter cleanups in other areas. They don't necessarily have to even be around there, as long as we make that part of the project we do that day.
So can we, with regards to that area in Jackson Street, what do you think we might be able to do to get those businesses that are located on that street to help with that, either with their staff, with their, families, because they're right there. It stands to reason that they have the most to gain out of it, and to be redundant, they're right there. It's, if I have a business that's right in the corner, I take up my staff members out there every day, once a week, clean it up, kind of a thing. We can maintain it, maybe create a habit, kind of a thing. I don't know if there's something we can do. There's an incentive we can do that's not going to cost a lot of money or something. I don't know what we can do to try and, does that make sense? To try and see if they can help out?
One thing, the city does have an Adopt a Road program. So maybe we can get one or two businesses to basically go through that program, community services, and adopt that.
Maybe they could adopt a block.
Maybe they can adopt a block. I mean,
What about if,
We'll take
are there codes in the city that if your property is not maintained with lots of trash, that's a ticket type of thing? Is that something that we can, and not necessarily punishment first, but carrot stick, right? Like,
I'm not very familiar with the code, but there are certainly codes about the signs, about I even think graffiti and things like that are that do come into play. The last time when we did the first cleanup, I went out and I talked to several of the businesses, and more because I was trying to come up with projects that we might not help them do, but be involved with. A lot of them had trash cans that were just horrible, and I asked them if we could replace those, and they have recycling and trash bins, and a couple of them allowed us to do that. It might be a good idea to ask some that don't have trash cans out front to add them. maybe have a sign for people on the trash can. If it's overflowing, tell someone inside, we'll take care of it, that kind of thing. There might be some things like that that we can work with the businesses, adopt a block, adopt your parking lot. I mean, your parking lot is kind of, they
That's
they
their
have
business.
to do
They
that
should be doing it
anyway.
anyways, but if
Yeah,
they're,
and
that's
they do.
kind of my
And-
point is that if they're not doing that and we see that, we can sort of get them to do it so we don't have to I don't want someone to not live up to their end of the bargain, and if it gets the businesses along that street to sort of step up and be a part of it and take pride.
Yeah, I mean, most of them that I talked to said, you know, we have someone come out once a week. They take care of the parking lots. They take care of, you know, I think that they do what they're supposed to. I think a lot of it is just coming off the street, or the wind along there is just blowing all kinds of trash from other places that ends up in the lots out there. It's not necessarily their doing, and they do clean up, and we do street sweep along there. I sent all that information, and yet there's so much wind and there's just so much general litter almost everywhere that when it blows, we end up with issues. And as I said, 3 full big bags of trash from one litter cleanup event.
Right.
And that was just with us with little pickers. I mean,
So my last question with that with the volunteers is, is it possible to coordinate with whatever entity runs the community service aspect of the courthouse and getting them to, because you know how they kind of do freeways sometimes and stuff like that? If someone is stuck with community service, get them to come and clean up the street. And that they can meet their community service obligations by doing that. Is that an option, or is that something that's completely outside the ballpark?
I don't know. We've always just called for volunteers. The students that were out this weekend were just volunteers. They were with the Boys and Girls Club, and they just have to volunteer and do some things. There's, you know, they get their hours that way as part of a leadership kind of program. And that's more where we've kind of done volunteers. Right. You can come out if you want to, you know?
Right. But imagine you have difficulty sometimes finding volunteers.
Sure.
And like in those volunteers you had come out, they're volunteering, but they're volunteering because they have an obligation. And I'm looking at kind of the same way of tapping into a possible resource of people who have an obligation for community service. And if we can get that obligation done in the city of Indio, this could be a win-win for everybody.
Yeah.
Or it could be very difficult and not possible. I don't know, but
I don't know.
I don't know how many people are stuck with community service on a monthly
Right.
basis. But you know, if you can get a half dozen people once a month, who have to come out for a few hours, and it could help, right? It could
Right.
be,
At least let whoever runs those kinds of programs know that there's volunteer hour opportunities here.
Yeah.
Would be.
and it could
something.
extend outside of the Jackson corridor we're talking about. It could
Yeah.
go 111. It can go, you know, all over the place. North Jackson. You know, there's no lack of dirty lots because like you talk about the wind. And then the last question I have, the $120,000 that you mentioned, we were talking about Burtec, that the city has, is that the money, so that money was allotted to the city, is that the money allotted to the city to give to Burtec? Is that on top of the money Burtec got?
No, not at all. That's
That's the money Burtec got through their grant?
no, this is the money that the city got to support 1383.
Okay.
We've used some of it to purchase these green bins and dollies because the food waste is pretty heavy. They allowed that for purchase, so we're working we're trying to get these out to restaurants who might be able to use these bins. But we still have quite a bit of those dollars left. So
We have our dollars
is-
and Burtec has their dollars and they
Yes.
don't mix, is my question.
that is correct.
Perfect. Cool. That's all my questions. Anybody have any other questions that may have come up? All right, thank you. Anything else you want to mention on this topic of the outreach plan, Sarah, before we move on to the next one?
No, but thank you for your comments.
Thank you. So we'll move on to 5.2, electric vehicle infrastructure updates.
Yes, so again, I was supposed to bring back a draft staff report, and here we are. But this is all good news. The Department of Transportation finally released the Charging and Fueling Infrastructure Discretionary Grant. And they basically, it's for electric vehicle charging stations, or I think, I want to say hydrogen fuel, but there's options. It's alternative fuel, not just EVs. But they have, for this round, $350 million available for EV chargers in community areas, and then $350 more million that's been approved, that's for approved corridor funding. I've had, this just came out, and I'm not entirely sure where that approved corridors are. They do it through you can send in a submittal for, where you think there should be approved corridors, and then it either gets approved or it doesn't. So not all that is done. So that may still fluctuate a little bit, but the minimum grant amount is $500,000, and the maximum is $15 million, and it is due May 3rd. We just got the approval to go ahead and apply for this grant, but it requires a 20% match for the entire cost of the project. So if we ask for the minimum, which is $500,000, we need to put in $100,000. And we have that in our AB 939 funds. So without touching the general fund, we could take our $150,000 project that we had started on and turn that into a $650,000 project. And so there's no staff report tonight. But we do have approval to go for this grant. I am going to start working with B&A right away. And one of the things we're going to start talking about is what do we need to do what do we need in the application? So if there is any kind of outreach that we might be able to do, or anything else that will help us on the way to getting this, we'll throw that in the outreach plan. Try to, Tara from CV Strategies said polling on the website was something they're able to do fairly easily. If B&A finds that to be helpful to our application, we'll start working on that. Again, we need to kind of connect with them first. They're the experts. They'll know where to start and what we need to be really competitive. And I've had B&A come in here and talk about some of the other grants, and I will, once we move along a little bit, have them come back again. What I do know is that we will need letters of support. So if you have any ideas on who could give us some letters of support, who you think would be helpful for that for the application, please let me know that as well. I'll let B&A know. We'll start contacting people or organizations, and we'll get those letters. They will go with the application on May 30th. I think that's all I have for now, because again, this just got approved on Friday, and we are definitely going to try and take our smaller projects and build this out into something more citywide.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions? No. I've got a couple. Sorry. I'm going to be that guy today. When you want letters of support, you're talking about community leaders and business leaders and things like that, or do you have a criteria that you're looking for, or just John Q. Public type thing?
I'm usually, what we'll get, is a kind of a canned letter from B&A, and then we'll see what they're looking for. So I will send out the kind of the criteria of or what we're looking for folks to send those letters, or who or what organizations. I'll send that out to everyone.
Whichever would carry the most weight with whoever makes the determination would
Yep.
help me at least to figure out. Not that I know anybody, but reach out to. And then my other question. is the 20% match. Do we have a cap of how much we're going to shoot for because of that 20% match?
Yeah, I would say so.
So would it be
It
the
doesn't-
500,000 because we have that 100,000 with the grant we got already? Like we're going to use that grant to get this grant type thing, or?
Yes, I think that that's going to be best, because we have about 150,000, and it will give us an edge to give, even that little more than the 20% gives us a little bit of an edge. That would be what we could do without getting into general funds.
Okay.
So likely, we're capped at the 500,000 because of what we have in EB 939 funds.
If we were to shoot for the stars,
Okay?
and there's a project that we would want to do to possibly get this grant to pay for, that would be more than that. What would that process be, and would we be able to get that approval from the council before the deadline? I know it's a very general question. I don't have a specific saying, hey, let's put an EV's charging hub for $1 million at Jackson and the 10 freeway. I'm not saying that, but say we want to do that. Is that something that we would have to rush to get in front of council and get council to go, okay, so we'd have to put up $200,000,
We would definitely have to get council approval.
right? Is that something that can be done relatively easily and fast, or is that something that's just such a slog that's not even the point of
No,
going after it?
I wouldn't say that, no. It can be done. The question is, can we explain it well enough? Like, for instance, I don't know, I think it would be a little harder to say we just want $1 million instead of 500,000. If we had we want $1 million because with that extra 500,000 and the funds that were put in from the general funds, we could do this.
Right.
Specifically would really help us make that case. So that would be probably the more important thing. If there's something specific like that, then yes, I would say yes. And I think that, that's something that I think we could work with everyone to get in front of the city council. But I think that we would probably need that because we're coming toward the end of the fiscal year, which means funds are basically expended. So, we'd have to have a good cause, reason, explanation,
Right.
a good project.
We would need
that
something
they could really say,
concrete
wow,
to-
that's
to
worth
say,
it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And one quick question, if I may.
Go ahead.
The conversation begs the question, so the 20% match, what is the parameters on that? Is that at time of application? Is that at time of project groundbreaking?
That's a good question too. No. Well, most grants, this one's just new, so I haven't gotten all the information on it like that. But most grants, as you move along as you put down your budget, in your application, you're going to say, these are the funds that are going to come from us. This is, as things go forward and progress, we're going to pay these things. So it gets paid out as the grant moves on. There's not like here's the funding we have, and you've approved the grant, so here it is. It's just as part of the projects and the budget and all that gets written into the time frame and the management of the project.
And if I may, I
course.
think until you get the specific locations on the corridor plan, on the 10 freeway, I don't think you're gonna know what the infill is gonna be, where you're gonna need charging stations and bases that.
So,
Because-
you mean like,
Well, if they would say, for example, they're gonna put, in the corridor, they're gonna put a charging station on Monterey and the 10. Then if you had an infill, or if they're gonna put one on Jackson and the 10, then the infill would be maybe on 111
got it.
versus, because I don't know how many gone to the new arena, but, you know, they've got a whole bank of charging stations at the arena. And, according to my sources, the company that put those in is paying to put them in.
So that kind of ties to my last question. So in section 14 of the handout you gave here, the eligible project types, it looks like it's just public buildings, public schools, public parks. So would this, so say we got the $500,000 grant, we matched it with the $100,000. The money that we would be used, is it limited to just public facilities and city-owned properties? Or is this something that we would, does public mean anything that has access to the public?
Well, I think their criteria is a 1-hour visit. So, for an example, on the new accelerated chargers, you need an hour. So it would be like a library or the historical museum or something that somebody would visit for an hour.
Right, so we're not talking about restaurants, we're not talking about convenience stores or things like that.
I read it as all, in the all projects, kind of below how it talks about public and private cooperation,
Okay,
that I believe it to be anywhere that it can be publicly accessible.
Yeah. Could be the theater here, it could be, could be the school, could be the library.
so this is something that we could supplement the current state grants that they provide to developers and businesses to put EV charge stations, so we could sit there and say, somebody building a restaurant, building an apartment building, building anything, we can kind of say, on top of that grant you can get from the state, the city will give you a grant of $1,000 putting in EV charging stations on your property.
Yeah, under 14 on that page 2, under community grants in the, under community grants in the first bullet, it does say, or publicly accessible parking facilities owned or managed by a private entity. So yes, I believe that I will clear this all up for sure with B&A to make sure we're not outside of our lines, but I read this as they really, it doesn't just have to be on a city-owned property.
Perfect, thank you. That's all the questions I have. Anybody else have any questions or follow-up questions that come up? No? Excellent. We will then move on to, unless there's anything else you want to share about that.
No, I was
Move
just
forward.
checking if we had any public comments on that item. Just
No?
a quick glance.
All right, so we'll move on to the True Zero Waste certification update.
Okay, right, for this one, I just happened to come across, just, for us, as we're trying to consider rolling out this True Zero Waste for businesses here in Indio, in New York City, the Center for Sustainable Materials Management is partnering or asking for projects from some other private entities and businesses, and for literally the same thing, to partner with them and kind of do a project that is something similar to ours. The details, of course, would be a little bit different with us, but I felt like I just wanted to bring it up because one of the things is that they actually have the call for projects, and so it really outlines, I think, a little bit about, wording we could use, something that makes it a little more clear, because it's actually something similar happening basically on the other side of the country, but without even the smaller details of what they will allow or pay for, the idea behind it is there, the wording is there, and I really appreciated that. And I thought also next month when we do, we have a little more of this fleshed out, and we do a little more, we actually do some voting, that one other thing that Tara said, that one of the best things that we can do for outreach is to really partner with the chamber. And if we could take some of this information and maybe just let them know about it, or get this out there kind of on a minimum basis, and see if we can get any kind of feedback on that. That might be another way of kind of inching forward with all of this. but I did want you to know that this was out there. There is information. It kind of mirrors what we talked about, and so, you know, taking a look at, looking at this and then considering our project might help solidify thoughts on that as well. Nothing tonight is, everything tonight is all updates of what's going on. So most of it, you know, it's informational and basically here to answer any questions about it. That's the only update I really have for the true zero waste certification.
Any questions or comments for Sarah regarding this? This is great, yeah, it's you know, it's a template to work off of.
Exactly.
Do you have any idea as to how many businesses in Indio will be eligible for this program?
I think that, I feel like any business that fell under 1383 should automatically be eligible for this program. And that really helps them move along in the zero waste certification anyway, because that gives them a lot of the points that they're already going to need. They're already going to be pretty far ahead toward the 90% diversion rate, because they have all the recycling in order, they have the organics in order. So on top of that should be more record keeping, which is what we can help them with, and then doing the waste audits and things like that to really hone in on what else can be cut down that might actually help your business, versus constantly being like, this is the next regulation, you have to do this. Here's like an opportunity that we want to help you to kind of just reduce completely rather than manage.
So do you have does True have a suggested plan how to approach those companies and how to move forward with that and get them to implement it? And as a sidebar to that question, the money we talked about earlier, the $150,000 we have currently, if a company says, I'd love to do this, but I don't have the $1,000 entry money, is that something that we would be possibly considering allocating some of the potential grant funds to assist them to do it?
Yes and no. There are two pots of money for waste diversion, and one is very specific to 1383, and that is very specific to moving organic waste out of the waste stream per the 1383 regulation, and that is the $120,000, and it will not cover this. The other is AB 939 funds, which is basically waste diversion, helping the residents and the businesses move waste out of the landfill, which is absolutely something that could cover this. So that's where we would get the funding to cover a good deal of the costs. The only reason we're really going to ask them to pay any of the costs is because we want them to be part of it. We want them to have some skin in the game. But we do have funding to cover a great deal of the costs and to have someone help them.
Excellent, thank you. That's my questions. Anybody else have any questions? No? All right, thank you. So we'll move on to the 2023 annual work plan update.
It's evolving fast. That's our update here. The work plan for the EV charging station, of course, that all of those dates got pushed out pretty far. But again, that's going to be worth it. And we knew that once we got into grid chargers, or even a mix of grid chargers and the solar chargers, that as soon as we got into the grid chargers, it would take some time, a lot more time. And with this grant, it's going to get pushed back a little bit more. So the work plan and the dates and the milestones on that are going to have to be reworked. One of the commissioners asked about water, and specifically the golf course, which has come up as well. And IWA, I think we talked last time about them coming quarterly, and they have agreed to come quarterly or somewhere about that. So they will be here next month, and I think it's a good idea to, I'd like to get to talk to them, and have their input on that part of the work plan. I mean, one, we need it. that their input is going to be essential on the water part of the work plan. The other is that the Governor Newsom did just, I think, last week, or maybe it was just yesterday, eased the drought restrictions, so that changes a little bit about what's going on here, and getting that update from IWA will help with that as well. There was also a couple of commissioners who talked about keeping in touch with what was going on with the Colorado River negotiations, the local impacts on that. And I got another email about that as well. And I wanted to throw this out there, and that we really aren't part of that. We're not state water negotiators, and in that we don't have a part of that. So my role in that would really be just watching the news and being outside of it. And so if there's a commissioner, because I don't have any inside information than anyone else, if any of the commissioners would like to kind of keep an eye on that and bring that back, then that would be great. You can email me if you're interested. But that would be one way to do that. There's nothing more that I can add as the staff in Indio. Because this is all changing, because we need to talk to IWA, because of all this, we're looking at taking the work plan, if it's okay with you. I think the earliest we would be able to take it would be May, so maybe even June. So now we're looking at a fiscal year work plan, and I feel like that's probably better anyway, because that's when most of our grant funding and our just funding in general kind of resets. So when we start new work plan or new ideas, then we're starting with a fresh budget every year, just kind of like the city is. So I feel like that works out, but I will take this as, as quickly as I can get it to you for approval, and to City Council for approval as I can. But it's looking more around May and June at this, or June at this point, for taking it to City Council. But besides all the little bit of evolution, it really is coming along, and I think in the next few weeks I can at least get you out a draft, so that we can start really commenting on that pretty quickly after that. And then we'll talk to water next month. Also, I contacted IID, and they'll come out as well. That won't really affect the work plan, but just so you know, there were questions about what they were doing. They did have another tree giveaway this Saturday, and they're going to come and talk about their programs as well. So in the future, we're going to have Burtec, IID, IWA. They're all working on their schedules now.
Excellent, thank you. Any questions? Those are the big three we got to deal with, right? It's water, trash, and electricity. So that's two of the big sustainable issues. That's great. I have no questions. Any other closing comments you want to make on the work plan before we move on to the next topic? If there are none, then we'll move on to commissioner comments. Any commissioners have any comments?
No, I think I'm fine.
The only comment I have isn't regarding work product. It's more of just of something of interest. A friend of mine who works with IID, who was working to bring power from IID to the charging stations over by Winco. He had mentioned that while they were trying to wire that up, there was literally a line of cars just trying to power up their electric vehicles already.
You're kidding.
And 30 cars. And people weren't even listening, were energizing their car, were powering their cars up, didn't care that they weren't charging. They weren't powered up yet. But I take that as a hint that we're going to have a real big problem real quick, especially with our festivals coming in this year, more like next year. But we're going to have to really work on figuring out where to put these. I know about a month ago when we visited the movable ones, we had some real challenges with that. But clearly, the need is just going to continue to grow. That's my only comment. Thank you.
That's a really important comment. We might want to talk about that a little bit more, because showing that need in this grant application is really going to help us. We're going to have to, I'll talk to BNA about how to get information I might be emailing you or, get some, because that need is gonna be key. That's a really good information. Thank you.
Well, especially if the state doesn't push the time frame for all new cars being electric, that's gonna even make it more, even faster. So, and that's what, 2030 or 2035, I think it is?
2035.
Yeah, so
2035.
that's 12 years away. 12 years is a blink of an eye, so that the sooner the better and the more the better, and even just whatever we can do.
Speaking of a proof statement, though, is just take a picture of the charging station at the arena on any night they have hockey, and you'll see all the charging stations full.
Wow. Wow. The ones down at, right now, the ones that you're talking about, those are Tesla, right? Tesla only?
But
believe so.
Tesla's opening it up for any car.
They're changing that, they're
Yeah.
providing adapters.
Oh,
Because they're getting federal money to open up to,
oh,
they're getting billions from the feds to open it
This
up.
corridor thing will make a big difference, because where they're gonna put them on the corridor, and who's gonna put them, and
okay.
Well, and yeah, the big developers here in the city are the ones, I think, for that letter and get them on board.
Yeah.
Because we got all that new development going on at Jefferson and Indio
I
Boulevard.
think that development's already required X number of electric charging stations.
More the better, right? So,
You look at the conditional use permit for the low-cost housing on Jefferson, behind Costco, across the wash from Costco.
Yeah,
I think that conditional use permit requires X number of charging stations.
but what about even Jefferson and Indio down there, all the restaurant?
It is Indio.
No, but that Jefferson and Indio Boulevard I'm talking about. Right by the freeway, there's all those restaurants now going in there. There's that Arco station that went in there a few years ago.
300 and some units.
Yeah,
That-
but there's development going on that we should definitely get as many charging stations as possible is the point.
Well, we have a good letter that we can ask for from a developer here in Indio that has a ton of land that can benefit from charging stations. We really should approach Shonda Development Group.
all right.
Because I think the first hydrogen units are, the ideal location for those is already at an existing gas station.
Which would make sense to reach out to the truck
Because
stops.
they've got the expertise with the barricades and the storage.
And I think there's more hydrogen semi-trucks coming online sooner than electric semi-trucks. So
Yes.
the truck stops off of Dillon Road, the truck stops all along the freeway. They would be a great place for that. Lots of stuff for you, Sarah.
No, it's good stuff, though.
Any other comments for commissioner comments before we move on to staff items? All right, so we'll move on to staff items.
I don't have any more items.
All right, if there's nothing else, 5:27, I'll motion to adjourn.
Second?
Thank you. All in favor? I vote, oh, sorry.
Aye.
You need to do a roll call or
Are
just,
you gonna,
all in favor? Aye, yes.
aye.
All right, there we go. We're adjourned. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.